Hey guys, what is up? It is Nathan here, and today I have a very exciting episode of Nerf Through the Ages, and this episode is on the Nerf End Strike Rayven. So yeah, the End Strike Rayven. This blaster was released in 2012, or in some places early 2011, as a part of the End Strike line, making it the first flywheel-powered, magazine-fed blaster. And yes, it does use magazines, as you probably know. You've probably seen a Rayven before. This was 2012, and it was End Strike, so the range kind of sucked. Or really did suck, if you notice. Very, very quiet motors and rev up, so it's not particularly great in that sense, but it came with a glow mag, making it one of the major, basically the successor of the End Strike Firefly, because it has a Firefly Tech magazine, and it is a bullpup, and it is very cool. As I said, it is a bullpup. It is semi-automatic, and it has a magazine well behind the trigger. So it's really cool. It has a End Strike barrel lug, End Strike tack rails on the top and the right side, at least right when you're shouldering it, as well as, of course, an End Strike stock point. And I have actually run a Rayven before, and so this is actually a very cool blaster. However, the reason I say you've probably seen this before is because there are other versions of it. And so that's what I'm going to be going over, because I actually have all 4 versions of the Rayven that have been released. So this was the original End Strike. It came in this green with gray. It's a very, very plain looking blaster, but it functioned. It had a AA tray on the side, where you could put 4 AA's in, and that's what it uses to power the blaster. A very, very good HVZ blaster when it came out in 2012. However, for those of you who know, 2012 was also the start of the End Strike Elite line, and technically it was late 2012, early 2013, and in 2013, we got the Elite Rayven. And this is the standard Elite Rayven. We got this one in 2013 as a part of the End Strike Elite line and as the major successor to the original End Strike Rayven. It had much better ranges, and the weird thing, I got this one from a contact over at Nerf Trading Post, so thank you very much, guys, for selling me this. This I actually did get somewhere else, and this, actually, I thrifted this one, but these are very, very similar blasters. Their paint jobs and their performance are different, however. So that's the rev up time for the End Strike Rayven, and it wasn't particularly great, and on the chronograph, I measured it, and I got a average of about 43 FPS, depending on the darts I used. I used Adventure Force Waffles because those are my preferred brand of dart, and I got about 43 FPS out of this one. Now this one seems a little crunchy, just because this is a used one, but I put this one over the chronograph. I've put all of these over the chronograph. I put the standard End Strike one over the chronograph, and I got put the Elite one over the chronograph, and I got an average of about 62 FPS out of this one. And the other thing that I should probably mention is that these are flywheelers, and they have a very, very long barrel. From about here to the end is dead space. So when I say 62 FPS, it probably has a better velocity, or it would have a better velocity if it didn't have that. Now, it's still very cool, and the Rayven is extremely comfortable, and it also this was also a blaster that came with a Firefly Tech magazine, and I actually have a bunch of these magazines. And so these are very cool, and I actually, this particular mag works, and I had this long before I had the Elite Rayven. So that is a very, very cool blaster, and this is probably my favorite paint job that the Rayven ever came in. And that might surprise you, but I actually really like the standard Elite Rayven's paint job because it has the nice gray stripe, white stripe, green accenting, which is kind of weird, but then it has the blue, and it has paint on both sides. Yes, that was a thing Hasbro used to do, thank God. I really like the Rayven, and I really like the Elite Rayven, but there were others, such as the Stinger Rayven, which also came out in 2013. This was a Sam's Club exclusive, and it was very, very cool. It actually came out at 20 United States dollars, as opposed to the Rayven's original MSRP of about between 30 and 40. I can't remember. I know this one came out at 30. This one came out at 20. And it was very, very cool. And it doesn't have batteries in it right now. And yeah, it came with a 12-round magazine. It came with a half opaque, half translucent 12-round magazine, but this is a 12-round magazine, and it's very, very similar. So, and it was very, very cool. Here's the thing. This blaster came out at, like I said, 20 United States dollars. Now, they're very expensive now. These used to be the least expensive, and now they are the most expensive because they were a Sam's Club exclusive. And so while I paid about $35 for this one, and I thrifted this one I had to pay about $80 for, which isn't great. Not particularly bad either, but it's not great. And it works just like normal. It works well. But these are very, very hard to find, and these both have better performance than the standard Elite Rayven. I have like 3 Ravens on my lap, I apologize, so it's kind of getting mismatchy, but that was the Stinger Rayven, which is very cool, and it inspired one of my favorite Rayven builds that has ever been built, Drax Lazarus build, which was very, very cool, and it was a very, very good use of a Stinger Rayven, all things considered. Now, another part of the Rayven's legacy was cutting them up and using them for Stravens. I do not have a Straven because I despise Stravens, especially if they're not done well, because the Rayven is an amazing, amazing blaster, and so when you cut it up just to put a strife in the front, I don't particularly like them. I don't like the way they look, and I also don't like cutting up such a beautiful blaster to use in what's essentially something that this already is, just with an extra magwell. And that might just be my old man get off my lawn about the Rayven, but I really do like the Rayven, and so I really don't like I don't really like people cutting them up, using them for Stravens. Now, if it's your Rayven, fine, go ahead. I understand, but that's a little bit of an aside, but that's one of the things that the Rayven is known for in our community. And I've had people cut up Ravens, and when this blaster did go off of production for a long time, which I will explain, or I will touch on here in a second, these are people stopped working with Ravens. And so Stravens are, I mean, I guess they're cool for some people, but for me, I really just don't see the appeal of cutting up a Rayven and putting the stock of it onto a strife. So, but it's cool, I guess, if you want that. And so, yeah. Now, there was a little bit of an aside here when I said that the Rayven went out of production, and that is true. After the Elite and the Stinger Rayven, they stopped making them. Hasbro stopped making them for a while. And that was tough because a lot of people cut these up, and more specifically, they cut both of these up to use them for integrations, as I mentioned. And so that was a very, very poor use of them, depending on how you look at it. Now, what I will say is that the Rayven did soar in price after that, because you could usually find these for about retail. Before the Elite Rayven got discontinued, you could find these for like $20, $30. And eventually they rose to a $90, $100 blaster on the used market. And if you could find one at a thrift store, great. You could buy it for less than $10 usually. But in the case of something like eBay, they went from, you know, $30 to, well, depending on who you sell them to or from, or you buy them from, well over 100. And some of them still are, like the Stinger Rayven, but that was an exclusive, so that's fine. Now, then 2017 happened, and we got the Rayven Fire, which is a very, very cool. It was a remake. It was a Kohl's exclusive of the Rayven. It came with a 10-round magazine, and it was a white Rayven, and it was very, very pretty on one side, because this the Stinger Rayven was basically the beginning of the end for full paint jobs. This one was a very, very poor paint job because it only had the deco on one side. It had the Nerf logo and the name Rayven Fire, but nothing else. Which is why I prefer the Elite Rayven. I'm putting in the mag wrong, aren't I? That's why I prefer the Elite Rayven's paint job, because it has paint on both sides. And the Rayven Fire was the last Rayven reskin we got, but it also made it so that people were more comfortable with working with them again. Which, once again, I don't particularly mind, as long as it's not my Rayven, because I like the Rayven itself. And if the Rayven will work, and it's usable, then I don't see a purpose. But other than that, that's just a quick aside. Now, I very much do love the Rayven as a platform. I think that it is very, very good, but also very, very underutilized. A lot of people don't like it because of the trigger system. So it's a very, very clunky trigger system because it runs on a fly-by-wire system. But it's still very good, and it's inspired some of my favorite mods, such as, like I mentioned earlier, the Lazarus is such a cool mod, as well as Lucha Thor's Rayven, modded Rayven blaster that he built. That was a brushless Rayven. I very much like that blaster, and so I do think that the Rayven definitely, not only does it have a special place in our hobby, it has a special place in our history, because it was the first magazine-fed flywheel-powered blaster, because it was before the Strife. So a lot of people assume, because the Strife was simpler, that it was the first one. It's not. The Rayven was the first one, technically. Now, I will say this much. The Rayven is a very, very sought-after blaster, and it's very, very expensive. I got lucky with these two, but and this one, because I only paid like $6 for this, because I knew I was gonna make this video. And the Stinger I bought for $80 on eBay, because once again, I knew I was gonna do this video, and all the other ones were actually more expensive at the time, so I decided to do that. Now, that is definitely a very important part of the Rayven's legacy, is that it's gone from being a relatively affordable blaster to being super duper expensive to being a little bit more affordable again to being very, very expensive again. So yeah, like I mentioned, the legacy of the Rayven is fairly complicated because on one hand you have an amazing bullpup flywheel powered blaster that used magazines and was the first of its kind. People used 12s, 18s, whatever in them, and they were great for HVZ and PvP if you modded them correctly. On the other hand, they were very, very expensive for quite a long time, for about 4 years. And then, even then, this Rayven cost about $60 if you wanted to get it from Kohl's, which, believe it or not, I actually had a friend who did pay full price for this, and he was very happy with it, and that was great. I do think that it was overpriced because Kohl's is a terrible retailer, but I do think that the Rayven and the Rayven Fire have a special place in our hobby, and the fact that I have all four is definitely something really cool for me because I love the Rayven, and so that it's definitely a very, very cool thing. And I'm glad I have all four so I can share them with you and show them off to you in this video. So what do you think of the Rayven? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you want one? Do you not want one? Do you want to cut one up and use it in a Straven? You want to do a reverse Straven, like a Strife Rayven integration where the Strife's in the back? That would be funny as hell. Please send me a picture. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, I would like to thank you all very much for watching this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Comment what blaster you would like to see next, and I will see you all later. Bye.